Hi guys, welcome back to CP Mom and Daughter. I hope you are doing well. Let's get into today's video. Today I want to address generally what some of the challenges are that people in the Philippines might, and what people in the Philippines with disabilities might encounter. Now, I want to put some disclaimers. One, this is my perspective. Two, I have a disability that's at the level that I can kind of just cope with it and go around things. I don't need all this assistance. Three, my eyes have been open to it more in the last 16 months with having my daughter who has more severe cerebral palsy. And four, I also have the money and the resources to overcome some of these challenges, unlike some other people in the Philippines might have. And so I just want to bring awareness to what you see on TV or what you hear about during Christmas time and things. There is truth to that. And those of us that live in the U.S. that have disabilities, we do have our own challenges and difficulties. I never want to discount that or say that we don't, because we do. But we also have more resources, more funds, or organizations to help us overcome those challenges. So let's get into it. One of the big things is that people with disabilities face in the Philippines is something that has to do with the shame and honor culture. A lot of times when it's discovered that a child or a person has a disability, they'll want to keep it quiet because they don't want to bring shame on their family or, on their close contacts. Disability, because of different things that have happened in history, is not looked upon as a good thing. And that, in a way, that kind of goes for all around the world in general too. And so it first has to be overcome that what my child or what this person is going through is not a bad thing, or even if they still see it as a bad thing, seeing it as, I need to figure out how I can help this person. So getting them to a doctor, finding a doctor that knows and understands what they're going through. That can be very challenging, specifically here in the Philippines. I have had friends and coworkers that have dealt with other things, and it took a really long time for doctors to even properly diagnose what they were going through. And so a lot of times some type of diagnosis will be able to be given, but it'll be it could be very general, or it could just be just a little bit of what they have. It might not be the full picture. So then once you have a diagnosis, where are they able to go from there? Well, it depends on, one, where they live in the Philippines. We are very fortunate to live in Davao City, which is not the capital, but it's a really well-off city. And so we have resources to physical therapy. We have resources to occupational therapy. We have speech therapy, what they call SPED, which is a special education program. There are resources. But then there's the thing that's hard to talk about, and that's money. a lot of these people that find out that their children or loved one has a disability, they don't have the resources to sit there and say, let's just try everything and see what works. They don't have the funds. They don't have the means to do that. A lot of the kids that Miss D goes to therapy with, they could benefit from not only physical therapy, which they might be getting once or twice a week if they're able to afford it, but they would also benefit from speech therapy, occupational therapy. But unfortunately, they have to make a choice. They have to look at their situation and say, I only have this much money for this. And so a lot of times, at least in Miss D's situation, when they're dealing with a physical disability, whether it's not being able to walk or not being able to sit up or whatever, they'll choose physical therapy first. And I understand that. You know, you look at what's the biggest challenge my child's facing. Let's tackle that first. And so they'll take them to physical therapy. And we haven't even begun to have the conversation of equipment or mobility aids or any of that, because good luck finding it here. If you can afford it, good luck finding it here. Most of the time, if you're able to find anything, it's in the capital, which is 2 hours away by plane. So not only are you going to pay the price for whatever amount of money that object or that piece of equipment costs, you're also going to pay for it to be shipped by plane. With our situation right now, being in the middle of a pandemic, you're not able to fly to Manila, try it out, see if that's what you need, and then have it flown back. Anyways, it's just super, super complicated. So these kids will come in to physical therapy, usually carried like you would carry an infant by their parents. At no fault of their parents. Their parents are loving, they're caring, they're just trying to do their best for their child. So the kids will come in once, twice a week, whatever they're able to afford. A lot of times the families are not able to afford intensive therapy, which is 5 days a week, 3 hours a day for 3.5 weeks. And that's what can be life-changing for these kids, because you're able to retrain the brain. If the body's not able to do this one thing this way, with the intensive therapy, they're able to learn it a different way and create a new pathway in the brain. So a lot of times the kids don't have that option. And while I'm sitting at physical therapy with Miss D, I'm learning more and more. I'm learning that most of these kids don't go to school. So if they're learning their colors or their numbers or learning nursery rhymes or whatever they're taught is either taught at home or they're taught bits and pieces at physical therapy. The place that Miss D goes to physical therapy is called CAT, K-A-T, or Kid Advanced Therapy Center. It is amazing. Shout out to them. They're not sponsoring this, but I would do anything and everything I could to get the word out for them, just because they've done so much for us. So they're not only doing the physical therapy things with the kids, they're also going over their colors. They're working on counting. They're working on, what shape is this or what animal is this? They're interacting in a way with the kids that the kids probably don't experience unless it's done at home with their parents. So that's huge. So the parents are carrying in their kids like they would carry in a baby, because they don't have any other resources to put their child in anything. Some of them have been able to get wheelchairs thanks to Johnny and Friends Wheels for the World. Shout out to them. Thank you. But even if they're able to get those, to have a vehicle that is big enough to fit a wheelchair in, is huge. And, or to be able to find a wheelchair that's able to handle the roads. I know a lot of times in the States we'll talk about how the roads are bad, after the winter there will be potholes and things like that, and you're just like, oh, these roads are horrible. Some of these roads don't have cement. Some of these roads are gravel. Some of these roads are a piece of cement here and then nothing here. So not only does it ruin your cars, it ruins wheelchairs really quickly too. And then so you have them loose and falling apart and all that kind of stuff. And so if they're able to get a wheelchair from Johnny and Friends or Wheels for the World, they're very grateful for that, because that's donated. It's at no cost to them. And most importantly, they also hear the gospel while they're receiving these wheelchairs, which is really cool too. But the other thing that's hard with the Wheels for the World and Johnny and Friends is a lot of times the wheelchairs or gait trainers or walkers or whatever is donated is adult size. So yeah, a lot of the wheelchairs and things that Johnny and Friends Wheels for the World gets in are made for adults. If you're an adult and you need a wheelchair or a walker, there are stores here that have those. Especially if you're not looking for something that specifically is tailored to you. If you just need a hospital style wheelchair or walker or whatever, you can get those. The thing that is just tough is the resources for kids here. It is limited. It has gotten a lot better. There's a local hospital called Tim Tebow Cure Hospital, which does some things, but they specifically focus on kids that have specific limb issues and deformities and that kind of thing. So they weren't able to help Misty out. So that's when we reached out on Facebook. That's another thing. You find a lot of your resources and things for therapy on Facebook. They use Facebook Messenger to communicate. They use Facebook and Instagram to promote their business and what they're doing. And so that's where we that's where we found where Misty goes to physical therapy, where Misty and Thomas go to occupational therapy. And actually, that's where we found out about where Thomas goes to speech therapy as well. So to say that there's nothing, that there's not any resources is false. There is. But, for example, if you're a domestic, if you're a domestic house helper, which is also another thing that is fairly common in the Philippines to be, you're making $10, if you're really fortunate, maybe $15 a day. Okay? Physical therapy costs $10 an hour. Like in the US, insurance does not cover hardly any of it, especially the intensive therapies. So we're paying for all of this out of pocket, and there's days and months that it's hard on us. So I can't imagine how the average Filipino would feel about okay, what do I do? My child needs physical therapy. My child needs occupational therapy. I gotta pay my kids' school fees. And then also focus on making sure I'm feeding and sheltering my family. It's a lot to think about. It's a lot to figure out. So they're dealing with those things. And it just puts a lot of things in perspective for me. You don't have to have all the bells and whistles that are out there for your kid in general, and then for your kid, that's dealing with a disability. We were very fortunate that we found a used wheelchair on eBay. I think it came from the UK. We got the squiggle seat with the stroller base, and then I paid full price for the, I'm gonna mispronounce it, the splashy, the like shower seat thing. And then I also got what's called a therapy seat for sitting on the floor. That's what we have. I take that back. We also had a stander made out of wood, and that was done locally here. Thankfully, we were able to get a little bit of help from Tebow Cure Hospital, and the nurse that we were working with sent us pictures of the stander that we could have made. So we had this stander made. But I think the biggest thing that is important to be aware of is, yes, there are kids that are in my daughter's situation where they lay on a mat all day, or they sit in the dirt, or their situation originally physically might not have been as bad, but because their parents didn't know what to do or were scared about, if I take them to the doctor, what will happen? When a child doesn't get that intervention, when a child doesn't get the care that they need, they become worse. If they're spastic, they become tighter. Or just a number of things could happen. And so early intervention is huge. And I'm saying all these things that if you're like, I feel led to start a nonprofit, or I feel led to do whatever, I want to lay it out. This is the situation right now, specifically in Davao City. So early intervention is something that's a very, very new concept here. The therapy place that Misty goes to does young kids. There are babies in there right now, which is great. But the concept of younger kids going is newer. And then there's also the barrier of funds. And that's across the board, whether it's physical therapy, occupational therapy, or speech. If the people don't have the funds, then they're not able to give their kids those cares or services. With the schools being shut down with the pandemic, some of these kids were receiving services through school if they were able to go to school. Schools are closed, so they're not receiving those services through school if they were able to. A lot of times they're just laying on a mat or just sitting in one place on a couch. No fault at all of Misty's foster parents before us, but they would just put her in this little seat, and she would either sit in that seat or be napping. And so the back of her head is completely flat because she spent a lot of time on her back. Because when we received her, she didn't know how to roll over. And so I just don't want you to turn a blind eye or say, well, that's their problem over there. No. As a disability community, we're called to take care of each other. As a Christian community, as Christian brothers and sisters, we're called to take care of the orphan, the widow, and those that have disabilities. The Bible speaks of it. So whether you have an extra wheelchair, get it to Johnny and Friends. One of the things you can be praying about though with Johnny and Friends is they get wheelchairs donated, and then they give them to the prisons to work on and fix up and everything. They want to make sure that they're in good working condition before they send them overseas. With the pandemic, there has been challenges that they have faced with all of that. So you can pray about that. Pray about how you can be involved. Pray about if you hear about a child in another country that has a disability but can't afford the physical therapy or can't afford a wheelchair or whatever, look into how you might be able to sponsor them. Look into how you might be able to partner them with a resource that's already in their country. This is something that has to be tackled together. So this video is already getting long. I have more I want to say, but I will put that in the next video. So I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you later. Bye. God bless. Don't forget to like and subscribe.